Well, hey everybody, and happy Halloween. For this module's discussion, we were supposed to discuss. Well, after watching the video, we're talking about what it is are the necessary components that make a star possible for a habitable planet such as our own. Well, after watching the video, I honestly don't have the greatest idea, but there are a couple things that the video told me that I would think is important towards the development of a habitable planet by a star. For starters, it talked about the differences between heat and temperature. Temperature being the speed in which atoms and other elements are moving within a star, how fast they are or how slow they are. And heat is the actual energy that is produced as a result of those higher temperatures or lower temperatures. The lower temperature it is, the less heat is being produced, and the higher the temperature, the more heat is being produced, much like how the weatherman describes it here on Earth. This is important for a star because it needs, in my opinion at least, there needs to be a balance in terms of how much heat is actually produced. Because first of all, temperature inside the core of a star is what ultimately creates heat, and from a nuclear fusion, as we have read in our readings so far. And because of that fusion, heat over time escapes the sun and reaches the surface and then escapes into the vacuum of space. And depending on how much surface temperature that a star may or may not have will affect the area in which a habitable zone is possible to occur. If we remember, a habitable zone is basically a place that is a cross between an area so far away from a star that is too cold to support life, whereas if you're too close to a star with a certain temperature, then it'll be too hot to support most life, at least from what we're aware of. So there needs to be a certain balance there. Well, whatever the temperature and heat that is radiated from a star will affect whatever that habitable zone is. So depending on the star, it'll affect the zone, if there is even one possible. It depends on the star type. I know there's some star types that don't have it, but a couple of other things that we should probably consider as well are some of the different types of stars out there, like it mentioned in the video, white dwarfs, but I would also think of other stars like proton stars or supergiants and stuff like that have an immense amount of gravity in compared to our own star or other stars in the area. But the importance behind this is because depending on the force of gravity and interaction between various planets and stars, if you remember the other video we watched about the top 10 strangest exoplanets out there that's been discovered, there was this one that was basically because of gravity interactions between its star and itself, it was constantly being pulled inside the star and roasted constantly in its orbit. So the conflict between the gravities between a planet and its star is also important, and whatever the star type is, it may or may not be harder for a planet like that to form. Like with white dwarfs, I don't think it's very possible for a habitable planet to show, not to mention its temperature is pretty cool in comparison to its main sequence stage, and not to mention neutron stars. Well, gravity is just going to crush any planet that goes anywhere near those things. But yeah, that is what I believe is important for a star's component. What the important components for a star are, it's a balance between heat and temperature such that a habitable zone is possible, as well as a balance between the forces of gravity between whatever planets it ends up having and itself. Because otherwise the planet could ultimately be crushed, or it just might not be in the right area, if there even is an area like the habitable zone at all to support life. Anyway, that's my opinion on this module discussion. Happy Halloween, everybody.